Hi.
Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are brand new here, my name is Nikki and this is my book nook. Today we are talking about The Atlas Six by Olivie Blake. Y'all, this is quite literally the most beautiful book that I own. I took this picture of this book to post on my Bookstagram. Shameless self-promo, go follow me if you haven't yet, at Nikki's Book Nook. I took this picture when I started this book because I was so excited about it. This was one of my most anticipated reads this entire year. Like, I bought it months ago, but I specifically saved it to read in October because I wanted all those spooky, witchy, dark academia vibes. Like, I was so ready for it. It was the first book that I read this month because I literally was so excited. And I took that picture 9 days ago. And in those 9 days, I only managed to get to page 215 of like 370. 9 days. Y'all, I know, like, people read at their own pace. I'm not saying like 9 days is like a crazy long time to read that much. It's just me, typically, I read a book in like 2 or 3 days. And this book is the longest time it's taken me to read a book all year. I had to DNF it. So I just want to say right off the bat, if you get annoyed by DNFs, if you don't like people like reviewing books that they didn't finish, I totally understand that. But I just wanted to talk to you guys about this because I was so excited about it and because so many of you have left me messages, commented on my videos, asking me for so long now if I'm gonna read this book. You guys have been waiting for the review on it, so I didn't want to just like leave you hanging. I wanted to give you my thoughts. But y'all, I literally just like, I couldn't do it anymore. Last night I had to stop because I have been put into the most aggressive reading slump I think I've like ever been in. Like, I don't know what the deal is with this book because genuinely, like, I like it. Like, the concept was interesting, and I'm not even gonna give spoilers in this video because I started to think about it. I was like, oh, should I give spoilers because I'm kind of gonna be like ranting about why I didn't like it? But in all honesty, I don't have any spoilers to give because in the 215 pages that I read of, again, like 370, nothing happened that like wasn't in the synopsis of the story. Like, I feel like in the beginning I was really intrigued because the concept was interesting, but then it just drug on, and once I like explain what this book is generally about, I think you can kind of understand why that is. So yeah, let's just get into it. So this book is an urban fantasy, meaning that it is a fantasy story. It has magical elements to it, but it takes place in the real world. It doesn't have like made up lands, made up places. Like, it takes place in real cities that we all know in this world, but there's just magic involved, which typically is my favorite. I love all forms of fantasy, but something about urban fantasy just really excites me because it feels like it's more real, and it makes me think that like maybe there is stuff in the world. I mean, whatever, a girl can dream, you know? I love urban fantasy, that's my point. So this story is basically about this society, the Alexandrian Society. There's a whole magic system in here that is really interesting, but also kind of just like a lot to take in. Basically, it's about like witches, magical people, but these witches, they're more, instead of like traditional witches, they're more like academic witches. Like, they study, they go to schools, kind of like Harry Potter-y meets like American Horror Story Coven is how I would explain it. One thing that was interesting but also like just confusing because it's a lot of information is that there's so many different types of witches, magical people, so many different types of magic that each of them have. Basically, it's kind of split into like 2 factions. There's like the physical medians and then like the more mental, non-physical medians. So basically, like, the physical ones can control the physical environment around them. They can like move things, or even things such as like sound waves, they can control that. Even some can control like time. It's just physical things around them they can control. And then the more like mental ones can control like they read minds, or they're empaths, or they can like persuade people. It's all like stuff having to do with the mind. But every single person kind of has like a different skill set, and you can like develop and learn these other skill sets, but everyone kind of has like a specialty. And so the whole kind of point of this book is there is an Alexandrian Society. It's basically the society of like the best of these magic people, and they are in charge of looking over these like super secretive archives of like all the world's most important history, and just kind of in a shadow hunter way, they're supposed to kind of keep the balance of life, I guess is how I would explain it. And every decade, 6 new best of the best medians are chosen to come and spend a year at the society, protect it, learn, train, and then at the end of that year, one of the 6 is not invited to join the club, I guess is what you would say. And so, yeah, the reason it's called the Atlas 6 is because there is a caretaker in charge during each of these like decades, and the one this year, his name is Atlas Blakely. So the beginning of this story is Atlas basically going and recruiting the 6 new candidates this year. And that part was interesting because you're kind of learning like what each of these people do, like you're kind of figuring out the magic system. And this story takes place, it's first of all, it's in 3rd person perspective, but we're seeing 6 points of view. So each of the 6 candidates, initiates, whatever you want to call them, we're seeing all of their perspectives. So it's kind of a lot, and you're jumping back and forth between all these people. In the beginning, it's interesting because they're all in like different locations, and they're kind of like, you're seeing Atlas come to them and explain the opportunity and kind of recruit them. But then like once they're all together and they meet at the society, you're still jumping around in their perspectives. And for me, I love a dual point of view, but something about there being 6 of them, it's just a lot. It takes a lot of time to go through each of them. And typically with like multiple point of view books, people have issues with it because there's always like 1 or 2 characters that you don't like or you don't prefer to see their perspective. And honestly, for me, I didn't find any of the characters to be likable enough that like I wanted their perspective, like quite literally. I'm not being dramatic. Like there wasn't a single one where like when I would get to them, I'd be like, oh yes, like I'm happy for this. It was just generally every chapter started, I'm just like, ugh, okay, like next chapter, which is kind of weird, but yeah. So the people that are recruited, there's basically, it's 3 of each, 3 of the physical, 3 of the mental. So on the physical side, we have this guy and this girl that have gone to school together like their whole lives basically, and they are constant like mortal enemies. They both kind of have the same specialty. They are like the best physical medians there are. They kind of have control over like everything physical around them. And then the 3rd physical median is, they call it a naturalist. So has control over like plants and nature and things like that, which I thought was really cool. And then on the mental side, we have a girl, and she's kind of like the bad girl, bitchy girl of the story. I guess her perspective was the most like interesting because she was kind of the bad bitchy girl, but her specialty was that she could read minds. So because of that, it just got very repetitive because she's like a very pretty, attractive girl. And so you constantly see her reading the minds of the men, and like they all think she's attractive. And so she's got like a really big head, and she kind of like uses that to her advantage to kind of manipulate people. And that's the whole kind of premise of the story is it's like they're trying to figure out like what the point of this all is. And it's like they're kind of just at the society, they're like protecting it, kind of like training, but then they know at the end that like one person is not going to get to stick around, so they're kind of trying to figure out like why. And I just feel like kind of nothing really happens this entire book. It's just a lot of like conversations of like, why are we here? What's the deal? What are we protecting? Who are we protecting it from? So yeah, we have the girl who reads minds, and then we have this other guy. He was maybe my favorite. I think his name was Tristan, and his power was basically he could like see through illusions. So other magic people can like put on illusions. They can create things to make them look like something that they're not, and he's able to like see through that. But clearly we learn like there's more to that power than we originally think. And then the last guy is this guy that just literally is like the most unlikable guy in the whole book. He's an empath, but his sort of specialty is like he can persuade people to do whatever he wants them to do, which is a very useful power, but he's just kind of a jerk because he can literally bend anyone to his will. So yeah, you're just kind of seeing all these perspectives of all these people. And I seriously, like, again, I was so excited to read this book because the concept just seemed really interesting. And I had literally not seen a negative review about this book. Like everyone just seemed to rave about it, love it. The only somewhat negative thing I'd ever heard is that the writing was kind of flowery or pretentious, and I'm honestly a person that kind of likes pretentious writing sometimes. I mean, like, my favorite book is The Fault in Our Stars by John Green. John Green, I love him with my whole heart, but like, his writing is all very flowery and pretentious, but like, it's so well done that I love it. Like, if it's done correctly and it, you know, makes sense and it works with the story, I love flowery, pretentious writing. And so in the beginning of this story, because I was interested in the concept, I was here for it. Like, I didn't mind the writing. I thought it was interesting, but as it just like drug on and I felt like nothing was happening, it was just a bunch of flowery dialogue between these characters and like nothing, like no real action. It really started to drag on, and I don't even know what the deal was. Like, I kept telling myself I really like this book, but I would sit there and I would feel like I had been reading it for like I'd put my phone across the room and I'm like, I feel like it's been nearly an hour, and I would look and it's like, oh, I've read 7 pages. Like, I mean, the font is kind of small, like the book is kind of deceiving. I feel like it's longer than you think it is, but even so, it just like every chapter, like I'd finish it and then I'd be like, okay, I need to like stop and take a break, and then I just couldn't get back to it. Like, I don't know, I literally invested 9 days into this book, but I just thought it was so boring and I just didn't care. Like, I feel like the whole point is like, what happens to the 6th person, and why are we here, and what are we protecting this from? And I just don't really get the point of the story. Like, I feel like it's just, they're just there. And I don't know why I care. I don't know. If you guys have read this book and you feel like literally on page like 216, it gets super interesting and like I'm crazy and I should keep reading it, maybe let me know. But like, it was just put me into such a severe slump, and I'm upset because it's seriously the most beautiful book I've ever seen. Like, this is my aesthetic. Like, this is what I love. I was so excited for this book and I was so excited to read it during October, but y'all, it just didn't do it for me. I literally just found every character to be like not very likable, and it was just blah. It was just blah. Like, that's how I would explain it, and I literally can't finish it because I promise you, if I tried, I felt like I was on page 200 for like 4 days. Like, I just think I would not read anything the rest of the month because it would probably take me another 9 days to finish it, and then I would just be in such a slump, and we don't want that. I have such a fun month of reading planned and so many things I want to read this month, and I feel like I've completely thrown myself off reading this book. I hate when that happens, but yeah. I don't know if anything I said just made sense, but if you guys have read the Atlas 6, give me your thoughts on it. I feel like I'm about to get totally roasted in these comments because, again, I've never seen anybody talk negatively about this book, but I just can't do it anymore. I can't do it. So I'm sorry, guys. I promise. I can't promise because we don't know what the future holds, but hopefully my next video will be more positive. I'll have a book I can recommend to you. But yeah, that is it for me today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will talk to y'all very soon.